Hi guys, I just want to say that Tom and I really have enjoyed doing these podcasts together. I hope that you've actually enjoyed it and, like myself, have actually learned things. This summer, on August 24th, we are going to do an amazing event right here at Under the Stars at Riverside in Oliver, British Columbia. We are going to do a live podcast. We're interviewing a couple of really interesting guests. We'd like to invite you to be there. I believe that you will not only enjoy it, but will be challenged and encouraged by it. So, August 24th, for more information, go to mscproject.com or to underthestars@riverside.ca. Save the date. Look forward to seeing you there.
Do not marry someone you would not be friends with if there were no sex. What a statement. There is nothing as powerful as an idea whose time has come. And today, Greg, it is a big idea, an idea that you'll tell me maybe I'm wrong. I think it has been primarily used in religious circles, the idea of premarital sex. We somehow have accepted that sex is a part of what it means to be human. But premarital sex is some idea that we have tugged into that identity that evolves around sexuality. And we've said, well, at this point, maybe not. And so, can I pinpoint again when that idea actually became a thing? Nah, it's a pretty difficult thing to do, but it's a thing.
It is.
It's a thing. Premarital sex. Now, definitions, Greg. How do you define? Is this one of those ideas that the word defines exactly what it is? How would you define what is premarital sex? Also, before you launch into it, taking note of the conversations we have had. We have spoken about marriage.
Yes.
We've spoken about divorce. We have had good conversations about that in trying to define marriage, what it is, what is not, kind of. So define premarital sex in the context of everything we have discussed here. Go for it.
I'm going to take a very simple approach here to begin with. Number one is that the very word somewhat describes the event, premarital sex. So in the case of marriage, and in the Western culture that we live in now, a marriage event is something that typically involves going to a mosque, a temple, a church, a shrine, whatever, or a garden, or a garden, some lovely spot where you have a person that represents either the state or a clergy person, and you have friends, family, etc. on it, and you have the moment where they say "I do," and that usually within a moment or two of that, there's some signatures put on paper, and they walk out. And the person that's in charge says, Mr. and Mrs.
Yeah.
And at that point in time, everybody says you are married. Now.
So premarital sex is what happens before
that lovely event. Yeah.
Event you've described so beautifully.
So that is what our, at least my concept is. In our Western world where we live in. If you back it up in time, then that definition becomes challenged.
Oh, one of those definitions that disappears the further back you go in history. Is that what's happening here?
Yes. Yeah.
So are you suggesting, Greg, that premarital sex is the idea is a construct of the modern age?
I would argue that it is. If you go back in time, and I'm going back into about the mid Old Testament times on the Bible scale.
Okay.
Using the Bible scale. So we're talking probably about 500 BC in that range. And again, I don't know the time. It seems like around then you are developing the concepts of marriage as we oftentimes embrace them today. So I'm speculating, but probably in that time frame is when we as a culture started to establish the concept of premarital sex, because then you had the marriage events that were clear and talked about in not only in the Christian culture but other cultures.
So let's talk about that for a minute. In the period you're referring to here, I do not see any evidence of premarital sex in the way we think of it today. In fact, one could argue that in the ancient world, the person you have sex with, that individual either becomes or has to become your spouse.
I agree with you, and I don't question that component of it. I'm saying is that the concept of what we oftentimes hold today, and that I just described a minute ago, those concepts of a marriage event starts to be established in that time frame. And again, I'm off by probably a couple hundred years, but I'm just saying is that in my study of it, it's somewhere around then you start to see a very formalized marriage event. But I agree with you that from a purely, and I'm saying from a biblical perspective, the Christian narrative perspective, that as we talked about in the previous discussions, I agree with which how you define that.
Yeah. So I guess what I want to bring out in this conversation is that to get the picture correct, sex is in the Christian narrative. If I go to the Hebrew Bible,
yes,
it is a part of what God has created.
Yes.
God created, excuse me, human sexuality.
I'm really glad he did.
And in the process of doing that, science today, if I get away from the ancient world and come to things we are measuring today, scientists will come out and say, oh, actually, this thing is pretty good for your health, good heart health and so on and so on. Mr. Director, you probably want to throw in a few things in there for our audience. Good immune system, it lowers blood pressure, it's better for your health, and
it lengthens your health, life expectancy.
It does.
Yeah.
So ultimately, we're saying, sex is actually
good thing.
It's a good thing. Are we then arguing that if it is done before this event that you've described, it ceases to be a good thing? Like the event has a way of turning the button on in the body to start having the goodness of it all. Greg, what? Do you hear my question though?
Yeah.
It's like the moment you stand in front of a pastor or a judge or your imam or whatever it is, okay? At that moment, that individual, that event has the power to switch the dial to say, okay, now it moves from being destructive to beneficial.
Yeah. Oh, I'm going to get in so much trouble on this one. I think your point is a really valid one, is that we have decided as a culture typically that it's a gray area before, and in some religious communities it's a very much a black and white issue.
Yes.
And then, as you described it, it becomes a very positive event later. It is interesting. One of the, so here's the area that, as a concern for me, this is my concern.
Yeah.
Is number one is that sex has a very wonderful magnetism to it.
Okay.
And I'm arguing, and I don't think this is an easy argument. is that a healthy male sees a beautiful young woman walk into the room, and he can't help but admire that this girl is gorgeous.
Yeah.
He doesn't know anything about her per se, may not know her background, may not even know her name, but he recognizes that she is gorgeous. And he says, you know what? I need to get to know this girl. And he proceeds to do what our director did a few years ago. He starts talking to her. Our director is going to get married in a little bit. This way we have to...
We're exposing him.
Yes, we're exposing him. But there is a magnetic attraction to this individual.
Yep.
And so it is very easy, and I'm going to just add a few other elements in there. All you need to do is create an environment where there is perhaps an element of chemical use, be it a liquid form, as in alcohol, or vapor form, or chemical form that you ingest in some form. And at that point in time, oftentimes, not always it, and I'm using the walls of personal concern drop.
Okay. So reason is
reason gets disconnected
it's
from
dethroned.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah.
So that is one scenario. You don't have to have that scenario happening, but I'm just saying that is a very possible scenario. And now the both individuals find each other physically attractive. They enjoy the sense of humor, etc. on it. And it's a very short, oftentimes, steps between the first encounter, the second or third date, whatever the term might be, when the individuals start engaging in sexual activities. Oftentimes the case. Now, does that make it bad? And going back to our definition of marriage, on the second or third date, or whatever, might be the fourth or fifth, many times. Again, I'm not saying this is the case with everybody, but many times a sexual act is involved.
Yeah.
So, using our biblical concepts of marriage, they are now married on date 3 or 4.
Yeah. Oh, yes. They are now a married couple.
Married couple.
Yeah.
Only as they have, and now this is the pros and cons on it. That's wonderful that they found each other, and I'm really happy they did.
Yeah.
But then what can happen is as they get to know each other, they understand each other's backgrounds, likes and dislikes, life goals, life aims, life expectations, and they realize that this is probably not a very good match for the long term. And there might be something else they find about the person's physical, emotional area that it just doesn't make sense to proceed down this relationship road.
Yeah.
So now they say, hey, God bless you, but I'm off to look for somebody else. So at that point in time, then you have a divorce event taking place following what we talked about.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So this can happen multiple times. You have multiple marriages, multiple divorces. This doesn't, it's not necessarily a very healthy way to start one's life off. So
I agree.
That's where I'm coming to is that how do you try and put in a practice that could optimize your life experience, potential life experience, and to have a nurturing and wonderful environment that both of you will grow and it'll be a positive.
I feel like the especially religious communities which have took it upon themselves to control human sexuality, like it's an issue of control. This is how it's going to be done, when it's going to be done, with who it's going to be done, and in trying to protect or to hedge human sexuality, I think the idea of premarital sex then came into the picture as a way of control.
Okay. And it's not a bad idea.
It's not a bad idea to protect against exactly what you just described, because what's going to happen is that you will be with this individual, and the moment you have sex with them, you're married, okay? And then when you separate, that is a divorce, okay? Whether there are kids or no kids involved, that is a divorce. And you can go through that cycle continuously in your life. And maybe, I'll be the first to admit, I don't have all the empirical evidence to say yay or nay. Maybe that is not good for your growth as a human being. It could very well be.
Yeah.
I accept that argument. I hear that argument. The problem I have, Greg, is that argument becomes a blanket statement or punishment to everyone. Now, it makes sense to explain it this way to people in their late teens. I think so.
Yes.
You say, listen, you do not want to keep getting married and divorced, married and divorced, married and divorced. It will have a very brutal psychological effect on you, okay? You need to put have another way of measuring your life partners, okay? Mm-hmm. But a 40-year-old.
I remember when I was that young.
Do you say the same thing to a 40-year-old, 45-year-old, 50-year-old? Come on, even a 30-year-old. Like, does that same argument apply to them?
Yeah, and I think that's a wonderful question, and I think it has to be thought through by a person that has influence in that young person's life. That could be a parent. It could be a pastor, a priest, or a mon, or anybody that or a Boy Scouts leader. It doesn't matter who the person is, but somebody that has influence in that person and said, okay, he's at a mature enough level at 14 to understand that. The next person at 14 may not be there. So I think we have to take into account the maturity of that young person. Mm-hmm. Saying that, you and I have both had young children. Yeah. And when there is a road or a place where there's no fence and there's danger, physical danger, we don't go into a whole lot of detail. Say, there's a car, it's going to be going over 30 kilometers an hour. The braking distance for that car is only so many feet, and if you dart out within 10 feet of them, it's physically impossible for that car to stop to prevent your death.
We don't give the science of it.
So
just say stay off the road.
Stay off the road.
Yeah. But Greg, I am saying though, you can say that to a 14-year-old. Can you say the same thing to a 40-year-old?
Well, I would hope so. if the person has a full basket of marbles, yes, I think you can.
I mean, okay, how about to someone who's a divorcee, and then they've been away from their partner, their life partner, for the last 3-4 years, and now they are seeing someone else. Can you use the same idea? And I'm talking about how you and I have defined what the function of the idea of premarital sex. Can you use that same idea to that individual? Or does the idea start to lose its traction with that person?
I think the idea has value at any age. And what I'm coming to is that if you go back to my little comments about a home, a greenhouse, a place where you can optimally grow. So what I'm trying to say is that in the case of somebody that has had a marriage that has failed, a relationship that has failed, and now they're single, they're looking to get back into engage, go back into the dating circle, etc. on it. The person is I believe still interested at the core about becoming, I hope people are becoming more, growing as a person, growing as an individual. If that is the case, I really feel that there's things I want to do, there's places I want to go, whatever that life goals are, then I believe that many people still have that no matter what their age is. So taking that primary assumption, then I should probably be looking for somebody that will nurture, encourage me in that component of my life. So one is that we have the physical need of sexual relief, orgasms, or whatever it might be that's associated with the marriage act. And that I think we need to probably have some discussion on. But I'm just saying is that should, and I'm just saying is that motivate us to find a person that is on our same life path or journey, or possibly on the same. So what I'm coming to is that this drive should motivate us. Now, what I'm also coming to is that sex has a very powerful effect on a person. You have this huge dopamine release in the brain and all the things that happen. And so it is a bonding event that happens.
Very true, Yep. But Greg, my goodness, you're digging yourself into a nice hole.
I am. I'm going to go right over.
You're just digging yourself in. And before we deal with the hole you've dug, let's go back here for a bit. There is a considerable amount of science out there that talks about how probably in your early teens, you might, or in your late teens, some people even in their early 20s, your body might say you are ready for sex, but as in physically.
Yes.
Okay. But psychologically, you are not. And your body might say you are ready to if you are a woman, you are ready to have children. But psychologically, you are not there yet. There is an argument to be made to say, okay, the idea of premarital sex, it's because as a society we've seen, you know what, people generally get married in their mid to late 20s, and at that point maybe they are their bodies and their psychology is at a level where they can participate in the sexual activities and all that comes with it in a healthy way. Okay.
Yep.
That's an argument to be made. And therefore, we will bring this idea of premarital sex to say, okay, we put this here so we can control. Okay.
Yep.
Pretty much controlling here. And we're protecting you from yourself. Does it still apply to a 40-year-old? I think at that point, the idea loses traction, Craig.
It's really hard to make a case for a 40-year-old. I agree. It's a lot easier to make for a 14-year-old.
And right there, I think that's where some of the things that have come attached to the idea of premarital sex have not been beneficial. I hate to say it that way, but I think it has not been beneficial. For example, one of the things in religious circles, you would know this very well, that have been attached to the idea of premarital sex, it is a very androcentric idea of saying, if you are a virgin, your virginity is a gift to your husband.
Yes.
It just gives, which is another idea, by the way. It's another idea that we've come up with, and there's so much scientific literature on this now to talk about the idea of virginity. It's another idea we've come up with, and it commodifies women. It makes women kind of like a commodity.
Yeah.
That you take your virginity as if it's a gift to the man who is going to marry you, and I think it's wrong. These things that are attached to the premarital idea, Greg, this idea of premarital sex, blur the picture instead of making it brighter. I think we could use a different set of arguments. I am all in favor of the idea of premarital sex. Well, I'll probably call it something different. Okay? Maybe prematurity. Avoid prematurity sex.
Okay. Yeah.
Avoid. I'll keep thinking about it. I mean, I'm cooking it as we're talking here. Because it is meant to control as far as young people are concerned. Okay. But two 60-year-olds who then decide, you know what? Hey, we've been down this road before. We know where it's going, and before they do all the ceremonies, they decide to have sex. You can't use the same ideas with them.
Yeah, we have to come up with a different set of arguments.
We have to. You can't say, "Oh no, your virginity is a gift," because at that point, maybe both of them are probably not virgins.
So, one of the classic, just to throw this out, one of the classic ideas about the virginity and premarital sex is the Christmas example. And it's typically said, well, Christmas Day, you have all these gifts underneath the tree. And if you open up the gifts before Christmas, Christmas is not that special. And so the argument is that wait for Christmas Day, wait for the wedding day, then you get to open up the gifts, and it becomes much more special. And I think there has some validity to that argument. I'm not trying to belittle it. I'm just saying is that is a strong argument for that.
Culturally,
yes.
But when we go to, I guess let me choose my words carefully. When we think about it, when we really think through this, does the wedding event turn something on that was not turned on before? No.
Yes, I agree with you. And here's another component of the premarital argument, and I think there's some validity to this one too. Is that you bring two people that have two virgins together, and they engage in the marital sexual act. There is no comparisons in their head how this partner performed in bed versus somebody else that it experienced. So now they come there with preconceived ideas on what is expected. And so the argument is, and I think there's some validity to that, there is very little disappointment in the marriage bed because both of them are unexposed to anything else.
Okay, as true as that could be, Greg.
Yes.
I hear your argument.
And it's a good one.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Would that same argument hold for two 45-year-old divorcees? They've moved from their first or second relationships and now they are together. Does the comparison still happen there?
No, it falls apart.
The argument falls apart.
Sure.
My argument is that the arguments we have used and attached to the idea of premarital sex have been very prejudiced.
Yeah, and it's typically bundled around an age group between puberty.
Yes.
To, I'm going to say, the mid to late 20 group of people.
Yes.
That's most of the arguments are bundled around that age group.
Yeah. Now let's focus on that. I'll be the first to say I do think who was it? Was it Malcolm Muggeridge who said maybe not? Yeah, Mr. Director, fact check me here. You do not remove fences until you've stopped long enough to ask yourself the question, why was this fence here to begin with?
There's a lot of wisdom to that.
I think there's a lot of wisdom to that. So I am not in favor of plucking out the premarital sex fence. Okay? I'm not in favor of just pulling it out.
Right.
I am saying, has the idea been used in a way that is beneficial, informative, and actually true, educationally speaking?
Yes.
To that age group, because that's the age group that seems to get bombarded with this idea a lot, mid-teens to late 20s. Okay. You get hit with this idea constantly, especially in religious circles.
Yes.
Because outside of religion, truth is, the idea doesn't carry as much weight as it does within religious circles.
So let me add this to it.
Yeah.
The information that I have read, and I'm pretty convinced that I got my facts straight, is that if you take a young person in that age group, and typically I hear this from children that have seen their parents go through a divorce, be it a messy divorce or non-messy divorce. There is the trauma that they see that happened in the family when parents separated. So they have this trauma of seeing their home unraveling. So they're going to say, you know what, I got to be smarter than my parents. And again, I'm using an illustration. If you were to buy a car and the salesman says, hey, isn't this beautiful? And you look around, yeah, really nice. And you can open up the door, look in, etc.
Yeah.
But don't take it for a test ride. Whatever you do, don't take it for a test ride, because the day you buy it, it'll be just the most wonderful experience in your whole life. And so they say, you know what? I'm going to take it for a test ride. So they're saying is that I'm going to try out this relationship first.
Yeah. Before I commit to it.
Before I commit to it.
Yeah.
And the problem is that there is a mindset is that, you know what? I'm with you. Yeah, I don't want to use it very, but I'm just saying you. Me and I'm scared of using it. Me and this beautiful female are going to try out this marriage thing for a while, and we're going to live together, and it's going to, we'll see how it works. And there's, if somebody else comes along that's better, hey, I'll ditch you and I'll go on. That's the problem, is that it says to that individual, you're good, but until.
Okay.
So then you have that unspoken relationship established. You're good until. I think that's problematic.
Yeah.
But it does speak to the fact that they're going to try this thing out. So then, oftentimes after several years of trying it out, they do get married. And statistically, those marriages have a higher failure rate, higher divorce rate than those that don't try it out. So you have that a strong argument that says, you know what, this is not necessarily a brilliant idea in the long term. But logically, it's really hard to argue the fact that if you're going to buy this car, I really want to try it out first. Yeah. So you can't. It's very hard to say, hey, wait until you've paid for it before you take it for a test drive.
Let me push you a bit on that, Greg.
Yes.
Let me push you a bit on that. If you can't take the car for a test drive, how do you know? How do you know? Like, are we saying sexual compatibility should never be factored in the dating process? Because if it should be, then give us a way of measuring, of knowing, say, okay, I think we're going to be sexually compatible here. Then now we can do the event so we can carry on with our lives. I mean, you check all other things in the dating scene. You say, okay, do we see money the same way? Okay. Do we see a relationship with extended family the same way? Because those are all deal breakers for some people. Okay. How much debt are you bringing into this relationship? That's a deal breaker for some people. What are your values? Like what are your hobbies? I remember I heard someone say, if I can tolerate the things about you that frustrate me, then maybe we can get married. If I can't tolerate them,
that's such a poor way to be looking at it. What's the minimum standard?
Yeah, what's the worst of you? Can I tolerate it? Okay, then we can have a marriage. But how come then you can't figure out? So we can do all these things, but not sex?
Yeah, a moment ago we argued the value and the beauty and the importance of sex, and what you're saying here right now is that now we are saying, trust us, it's going to be wonderful, without doing any evaluation on that beforehand. Yeah. How do you make an evaluation without trying it out?
That is a difficult question, especially if we have to answer it in the context of the religious worldview we're discussing it. It's becoming a very difficult one. other civilizations did not have trouble answering this question. You know, I think of ancient Egypt, for example.
Yeah.
You know, this concept was not a concept to them, you know.
I know, yeah.
You come across ancient documents and, you know, a woman describing that, oh, we met and king took me into his bedroom and now I'm his wife, you know.
Yep.
And it is the person you have sex with becomes your wife. In ancient Egypt, it's ancient Egypt, I think, where the attractiveness of a woman was measured by her ability to have children.
To have children, implying that she's.
Yeah.
So if I'm let me just back that up.
Yeah.
So if I'm looking for a suitable marriage partner, I would, if I was in Egyptian times, I would look for a woman that's already had children.
Yeah. Then you know she's fertile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Then you're like, okay, that is an attractive woman.
So this whole idea of virginity.
Yeah. Like
that was off the table.
The way we think of virginity, there are so many ancient civilizations that did not have that concept. The concept just wasn't there. Concept just didn't exist. There are scholars who are even arguing today. Now, probably would not have time to go into those arguments that Old Testament
Yes.
Jews didn't have that concept also. And they have all this literature to show it that the idea of virginity, the way we think of it today, was actually, to them, a virgin was someone who was not sexually active. So before you are attached with someone, before you're married, you are a virgin. And if your husband dies and then you spend some time without sex, you are a virgin again. So your virginity is a state of not being sexually active, not a state of prior to sexual activity. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, but that's a whole ball of wax that
don't go down there. Don't go down that road.
That's a whole but that's a research that's out there. Scholars are arguing for that, and there's evidence of that. And so when you come to the world we're living in today, you're like, yeah, it is difficult to answer that question because we've built a world around our identity that says, no, you do not jump into bed before you stand in front of the minister. Okay. As much as it doesn't matter, it's like culture. It might be the most ridiculous of things. It might not make sense, but if a group of people believe that's what it is,
yes, then it has value.
Then it has value.
Doesn't mean it's true, but it has value.
It doesn't mean it's true, but it has value. And it would be dangerous or maybe unadvisable to carelessly rip that fence apart.
Yes, I see where you're going with this. Yeah.
So sometimes maybe it is best to just say, okay, I'll take a step back. Maybe let this fence be what it is. Because the idea of premarital sex, when it comes to protecting us, protecting young people from themselves,
right,
I see value in it.
Yep.
But the whole entire other package that's attached to it, I have questions, like the issue of virginity. So, thought experiment. If we were given an opportunity, Greg, to redefine and reattach things to this idea of premarital sex, what are some of the things we would attach? What is something that you think would be true and valuable to that age group we want to focus on now and say, and maybe also, let's stretch it. What is something you can attach to that would hold true, not only for that age group, but for everyone?
So let me throw this one out before I answer that complicated question of yours. I want to go back to an illustration from the scriptures, and I think we could probably take it from other sacred material also, where there was arranged marriages.
Yeah.
And to this day, I know a number of people that I'm familiar with that had arranged marriages established for themselves. And the interesting thing is that, from my understanding, the success rate of arranged marriages are oftentimes associated with a culture. But I'm just saying is that even if they come out of that culture and live in a
different culture,
different culture, which divorce is much more acceptable, the success rate of their marriage that is in a arranged marriage versus a non-arranged marriage is actually, I think, slightly skewed for the arranged marriages. They have a better long-term success rate.
Yeah, not slightly, by far.
Yes. Okay. So
by far.
Thank you for supporting my comment here. So I think that is really an interesting anomaly, the one that we need to look at. You go back to our story here about Isaac.
Yes.
Yes. So they sent out the hired man, who they had a lot of confidence in, to find a suitable wife for Isaac. So here's the thing that I think is really interesting, and one that I know that for myself, I don't know if I trust my parents to make a decision for me. It's like, you got to be kidding me, when I was a teenager, I thought they were so wrong on so many areas, but surprisingly, as I've gotten older, I've discovered that they were more right than wrong. They actually were a lot wiser than I thought they were. But what I'm coming to is that if you have a environment, a home environment, where the child can say to his dad or mom, I think really I would like to be married to somebody such as this, and they describe their concept of a potential mate. And then the parent says, oh, okay, let me think about that. I think I may have somebody in mind. So they go out and negotiate with the other parent or whatever it is, and my understanding of the arranged marriage, typically the young people have a chance to be exposed to each other, and if they still have veto rights, so to speak, and say, you know what, Mom, Dad, I'm sorry, this may not work for me. I'm really uncomfortable, even though there are many great qualities. Then the parents need to go back and find another one, or whatever it is. So what I'm coming to is that perhaps there is value in having the parent involved on it, that understands their child and understands their children. So if that was the case, where the parent was much more actively involved with the selecting of, or assisting in the selecting of a potential mate, then some of these questions that the young person is going through were already answered. So that would move them further down the decision chain.
Yeah. So Greg, you managed to wiggle away from my question,
but want to stay away.
But at the same time, you have put forward something that I don't think is currently there in the idea of premarital sex that I think should be attached to it. That your relationship, one of the things that is more important than sex is you knowing that your union with someone is not don't see it in an individualistic worldview, but see it in a communal worldview. Because, you know, we live in a first world setting, and it's always, you know, what's the saying? Me, myself, and I.
Yes.
You know, it's all about me, me,
all
me.
about me.
Okay? And we're saying maybe in our conversations about premarital sex, maybe one of the ideas to attach into that is that, hey, we want you to move out of just seeing what is good for you to seeing this in a bigger perspective. It is, you know, when you, believe it or not, I don't think many young people will not believe it, but believe it or not, when you jump into bed with someone, even though it's the two of you behind closed doors, more people are affected by that or involved in that.
I'm pretty sure I know what you're referring to in the context of what you just said, but just unpack that a little bit more.
Yeah, because you do not exist in isolation, number one. Okay? If naturally, and this does happen, if if the girl gets pregnant in that sexual encounter, okay, now you have another human being to think about.
Yep.
Okay. In doing this, in this sexual encounter, this human being you are in this encounter with also has a past. She has, not a past, also has a community around him or her. Okay. Parents or, you know, whatever, adopted or biological, doesn't matter. Siblings in some cases, relatives in some cases, you know. And I'm bringing this very old and also old as in it, you know, in the Western world, you don't see a lot of it, but also I'm bringing it because from an African perspective, you know. So when you are with someone, you have made a commitment not only to them, but to their family.
So that's where the ripple effect, yeah.
It has a ripple effect. When they are children, there's a ripple effect. The very fact that you should be able to be in front of your sexual partner's family, to stand up and say, I am here. I am part of this unit.
Yep.
And they can also hold you accountable and depend on you when need be. So we're saying now, premarital sex is, we love this fence because it gives you time, or it gives you the space to focus on what actually is important. And number one, or one of them, is the community around you.
I really enjoy what you've shared, and I think that has tremendous value and adds beauty to the whole discussion. But let me share with you is that I think it's a little bit outdated. So what I'm coming to is that back in, and if memory serves me correctly, in the late 50s and the early 60s, in particular, the contraceptive pill, the pill was developed.
Yeah.
And became very popular. So now in our modern world, the probability of pregnancy with a sexual encounter has dropped almost to zero, or potentially has gone to zero. So that opens up this whole Pandora of opportunities.
Yeah.
That I can then actively get involved with members of, in my case, of you know, sexually active is what I'm trying to say, and pregnancy is really not an issue.
Yeah.
So therefore, that concept which you just shared is wonderful, but it's outdated.
Yeah, and my rebuttal to that, my response to that would be, it is because we've been cultured to think that when someone jumps into bed, all they are bringing are their sexual organs, and that is not true.
Yes.
You bring to the bed everything you are, and what you are is exactly, it is built by the community that has been around you.
Your environment.
Your environment. It's like, what do the psychologists say? The child gives birth to the man. Like your experiences as a child are exactly what's going to bring forward the man you will be. So you jump into bed, you are not just bringing your sexual organs, you are bringing, sex then becomes this, can I dare use the word spiritual? Sex then becomes this spiritual encounter or spiritual event where you are not only bringing your sexual organs, but you are bringing everything you are. Everything you have. And there's this sharing of this. It is mysterious, and yet it happens. And I think the Jews were onto something when in the book of Genesis where they argue about this oneness that starts to happen. And so everything that you are bringing into the marriage bed, and that oneness is starting to happen as you knit your individual selves together with the package that you are bringing. So a world that has ignored that will then say, oh, the only thing that happens when you jump into bed is either someone is going to get an orgasm or not, or someone is going to get pregnant or not. And that is not true. Orgasms or pregnancy or not, you still bring the package of your identity to that bed.
You make a strong point, and I like it, and I think it is the answer to your earlier question. And your question is it really that much different, or is the difference between a young person engaging with sexual activities and we want to fence them and protect them, versus a 40-year-old? And I think what you've just said here and shared with us is a powerful answer to a 40-year-old. They're bringing all this history, background, family, all that together, be it 40, 50, or whatever. You're still, that same event is still happening.
Yes. And that is something, that's what I was saying. If we imagine if this is what is attached to the idea of premarital sex, if we're saying, listen, you are bringing so much of who you are. I'm talking your childhood traumas, your all of these things you are aware of, and things that you are not even conscious of yet. Your pre-generational traumas, and and all of it is just so much that you are bringing there. And what you do when you jump into bed with someone is that you are now starting to take those things and they become a part of you. Do you want to do that until you really know what you are getting yourself into? So it turns out you can actually test drive the car. You can.
You can.
You can. And know exactly what you are bringing into your being.
You have my curiosity up. Could you go into much more detail about what you just said? How do you test drive the car and I'm assuming
Yeah.
without having a sexual event.
Yeah. So time is a friend. Time is a wonderful companion. And that is one thing I would attach to the idea of premarital sex. Because what happens over time, now your mindset when you're in the dating scene is now different. Because now you are not only going out to have dinner with someone so you can get into their pants. Now you're going out to have dinner with someone so you can get into their life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now you are very conversational. Now you're even more eager to meet their family. Because, the famous old statement that you given to girls that do not marry a man until you've seen how he treats his mother or his sisters. Because, my goodness, what you see there is exactly what you are going to get.
You say that with a degree of certainty.
Now in the dating scene, you start looking for all of these things. So now dating has less to do now with how sexually attractive this person is. Because now sexual attraction, you are now using a different measuring rod for sexual attraction. It is no longer just physical.
Yes.
But it's now a more fuller package. Saying, yeah, I physically, I feel like I want to jump into bed with you.
Right.
But there's other things that should contribute to that. How do you treat your parents? What kind of a person are you in society? What kind of traumas have you been carrying, are you carrying, and are you aware of them? Because the moment I jump into bed with you to address this physical sensation, I am getting more than the physical sensation. I am getting an entire package of who you are.
So that can either be positive or negative.
Exactly. At least I think so.
Yes. Yeah.
And if that it becomes the things we attach to the idea of premarital sex, suddenly this big idea becomes a really good idea.
That's a profound change.
Yeah, because then it's no longer about, oh no, your husband would really love your virginity. That is so wrong. That is so wrong. Women are human beings. Yep. Women are also human beings. And I want to affirm that.
Yes.
As a father of little girls, I want to affirm their humanity also.
You bring up the virginity component, and it is typically associated 99% of the time that I've heard it with the woman.
Yes.
What about the man? You very seldom hear, oh, he's a virgin.
Yeah.
Occasionally, but that's not what the bulk of the conversation is.
That's because our conversations around this subject are very selfish. They are centered on men. What is pleasurable for us? I don't know. Have you realized this, or am I the only one who's realized this? I'm sure many people have. It is. We live in a society currently where it is far much more easier to talk about female pain than it is to talk about female pleasure.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. It's so easy. It's so easy to sit down with people, and even in the academic literature, where people will come out and talk about female pain, But it's a handful of scholars out there who have the guts, because that's how hard it is to come out and say, no, women also have pleasure. And this is what they love. This is what they desire. This is this. And a lot of men can't even listen to that because it feels like it's threatening to them. It feels like it's... I think we do need to start seeing each other as equals. And then when we start to talk about premarital sex, we're all on a level ground. Because the girl I'm going to jump into bed with, do I want the package she's bringing? Do I really want that? Do I want to have to then also start to deal with the traumas she's going to bring to bed? Do I really want, I mean, even in the simple things, Greg, do I really want to be involved in the debt she's bringing?
No. Yeah. You asked.
I think instead of fear.
But I think let me just stop that. That's a snide remark. But I'm just saying is that I think we all bring debt. We're all, and I think you're talking about financial debt, but we all bring deficits to the relationship, and I think that is a reality that the male and the female bring to it. Yes.
Yeah.
It is the deficits that we have in our character, maybe deficits in our bank account, but there is still deficits. Yeah.
Greg, I like that. Imagine if the idea of premarital sex was brought about with this umbrella that is that uncovers it, that says, hey, fact of life, we all bring some debt to this thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of debt your partner is bringing? If not, here is this idea to give you space to figure that out. It's called premarital sex. Don't deal with the physical sensation until you have addressed the bigger things of life. And we just put that in there. Because I think there's more to it.
Yeah.
I think successful relationships have not primarily been due to the good sex. But what I said in the beginning, if you remember.
No, I don't.
Don't marry someone you would not be friends with if there were no sex.
Yeah. That's a powerful point.
If there's a friendship. Because, I mean...
That's the base. Everything can get built on that.
Everything can get built on that. If there's no friendship, you are in trouble. Because the truth about life is that change is a consistent element. I mean, today, the physical things that you thought were the best thing ever on this individual you have partnered with, a few years down the line, all gone.
Oh, that's so discouraging.
And yet that's the reality of life, you know. Hence why, remember, when we talk about in our conversation about marriage, Mr. Director, in case someone didn't watch that, just throw the link on the screen, you know. If you are not able to grow into the largeness of marriage.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Don't do it.
Yeah.
And the largeness of marriage also involves consistent change. It's a guarantee. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
And so when you meet people say, oh, they've changed. What did you expect?
Yeah. That is reality. But I appreciate what you're saying it. But I want to go back to something that you just mentioned here a couple of minutes ago, and I think is a powerful point. That how in the academic world and in particular, we are uncomfortable talking about female
pleasure.
Female pleasure, exactly. One of the interesting things, and again, I may get myself in trouble with a lot of people in this one, but in the Christian narrative, we have the Bible that is, the Judeo-Christian Bible that we have. And my understanding is that this is not necessarily unique to the Christian narrative. There's other holy material that has similar type of material in there, and I'm not familiar with each one of their particular writings. But in the Psalm of Solomon, some people will argue that this is all academic, and yet in the Jewish culture, in the conservative Jewish culture, that is not perceived as academic. This is about female sexuality that is being described in rather cryptic terms, and some not so cryptic terms, that actually speak to the female pleasure, etc. on it. And I think that's really encouraging, slightly disturbing for some people.
Yes.
And it is a very powerful piece of literature that should be thought about by the male component of the relationship.
I agree, Greg. And it is no wonder that when canonization was happening, and even post-canonization, you have a majority of them male scholars who looked at some of these books, especially the Songs of Solomon, and they said, no way, this cannot be of God. This is a dirty book. We can't, this has nothing to do with God. But I think that book being part of the Jewish canon and the Christian canon is an affirmation that human sexuality, male and female, is a good thing. It is a good thing. And we should celebrate. I mean, I have read through that book. I mean, some of the descriptions, it's more so in Hebrew. In the translations, it's, it's a hit and miss in some places. The descriptions of female desire are just par excellence. So real. So real. The descriptions of male desire are so real. I think there's one line there where the Shulamite girl says she even wishes that Solomon, I guess, was her brother, because then she would have an excuse to hold him in public. Like, come on. Come on. This is a girl who is desiring to hold and to be held. That is pleasure. And it should be celebrated.
And I like the direction of your point, because sex is a good thing.
It is.
And from the Christian narrative, God invented it. I didn't. But he did an amazing job. But we sometimes, as humans, have failed to appreciate it and have, we've used it and abused it, but it's still a phenomenal thing to have.
Jewish wisdom literature says God made us simple, but we have complicated ourselves.
Said well.
We've done a good job of complicating ourselves. So we have an alien.
That alien. Send it back.
Fresh from Mars. Just landed a couple of minutes ago. And the alien meets you. Say, Greg, I just realized this whole idea of premarital sex. How has it worked for humanity? What's your take on it? Good, bad, yay, nay?
I would argue that it's evolving. And I think we should be very careful in how we condemn or support premarital sex. It is very easy from me having grown up or been involved or adopted a lot of the Christian beliefs and ethics. It's easy for me to say this is a black and white issue. I have to do one thing, and I think this is very important, is that people make mistakes. I make mistakes all the time. And a young couple can make mistakes, but that doesn't depreciate their value.
True.
And what the optimum is I think there's much value in making sure, as you described, that they have a period of time where they totally understand who they are buying, in a loose term, a very poor usage of the my point. But as you've illustrated, it's just not the one person. You have 100 or whatever it is. There's a group of people standing behind them that you are also
generations.
That you are basically knitting together, because you too have a bunch of people standing behind you. So there is a knitting together of the families. So I want to support that.
Yeah.
I also want to support the fact that people may make poor choices, but that doesn't dilute their value. And I'm not saying the poor choices are what I'm saying is that oftentimes the poor choices are made very early in that relationship. So we have to be very careful how to support and how to encourage and how to nurture that.
Yeah.
So I think we got to be encouraging and give explanations to the people, young people that we have influence on, what the ramifications are with engaging at a very early stage. Secondly, I think the same concept applies to people that are older to a large degree, as you described. There's still a baggage that comes with each person. So I don't think you can say it's wrong or right. I think it depends on the culture and the time and the place. If you back this up a few thousand years ago, if we were in Egypt, we wouldn't have these discussions to some degree.
Yeah.
So your alien friend that you keep showing up here, I think we have to say, as of today, we want to guard against a potential divorce failure in that relationship. What I'm wanting to do is to nurture that person so they flourish and they become the genetic, spiritual, and emotional potential of that person as the most they can be.
Yeah.
Anything I can do to encourage that, I need to encourage that. And an early marriage event may not necessarily lend to that.
See, if the alien then would meet me and ask me,
I sure hope he has a lot of questions for you.
I would say the idea of premarital sex, the downside of it is that it became a monument or an artifact like the ones you see at a museum, and it just doesn't change. the idea needs to change as time changes. The idea needs to be alive. In that today, in the world we live in, maybe the whole virginity thing, you could have an argument for it in the ancient world, maybe when when the world is still a man's world, and that's their normal, maybe, okay? But in the world we live in, the idea of premarital sex needs to take on new meaning.
Yes.
It's not an artifact in the museum. It has to be alive. And that new meaning has to involve how you understand the difference between being physically ready to have sex and being psychologically ready to have sex. Those two usually don't happen at the same time. That idea of premarital sex should include understanding, like we have spoken, what kind of baggage someone is bringing to your life. It should give you that space to look into all of that and see if this is really something you desire in your life. And like you've pointed out, for those, someone could be watching this and thinking, oh my goodness, no, I've done that already, so my goodness, I'm in trouble then. No, you're not.
No.
I think there's still, the idea still holds true. Take a step back, and if you really value the person you are with, this episode then becomes food for your relationship.
Yes.
Something you can now, it has now made the things you are looking at each other even broader. Because now you realize that there's more to this than just physical sensations. There's a whole lot more, and I need to be able to grow into the largeness of what this thing is going to become. So I would say to the alien, someone needs to rescue the idea from the museum and perform a Genesis miracle to it and breathe life to it.
And you bring an interesting point, and I like this, is though sexual maturity is more than physical body parts becoming mature.
Yeah.
It also means emotional maturity.
Yeah.
Spiritual maturity. And that together, and we can argue there's other components, that together makes a person mature.
Yes. Yes. Having the body that is able to make or carry children does not qualify you to be a parent.
That's true.
It just doesn't. And the best place, the best space to learn that is the space that can be created by the idea of premarital sex. Avoid premarital sex. Just buy yourself that time. But I'm pretty sure there's someone watching this. Mr. Director, which camera do you want me to look at? You have a wealth of them here. There's someone watching this, and I want to just say we appreciate your support.
Yes.
We really do. And I want to ask you to always go to the MSC project website. Mr. Director, you'll put that on the screen. The mscproject.com. And you can find more meaningful conversations like what we're having. And if you smash that subscribe button and smash that like button, it gives us the time and the space and the resources and the opportunities to continue providing you with the material that is meaningful to your life.
I really appreciate you directing people to that website, because this summer, August 24th, we're going to have a live podcast, and you and I are going to be there. We have a chance to do some interviews. We're going to invite those that are viewing and listening to join us. It'll be mid-afternoon on August 24th. You can get more information on this website, and also under thestars.com. We'll have some more information available, and it'll be fun because we're going to have some guests there, and I'm sure you're going to be wrong on a couple of points, and we're going to keep that alien around. it'll be a lot of fun, and I always enjoy having discussions with you, and I look forward to having it with some other guests also. Yeah, and it'll be a great afternoon. So we invite you to be part of that. Again, thank you for subscribing. Thank you for giving us the views, and thank you for sharing, because all those things really make our director happy, and we do so much work here to make him happy. So help us as we go forward. We enjoy what we're doing. We love what we're doing, and look forward to your comments. And disagree with him, support me if you would. But no, we just enjoy getting any feedback, and look forward to August 24th.